This video is about using basic Camtasia functions. By the end of this video, you should be able to use Camtasia to record all or part of your screen. You should be able to use basic editing functions in Camtasia, as well as basic audio functions and basic annotation functions. And you should be able to export your video as an MP4. First, an overview. Camtasia is a screencasting software. Therefore, it's designed to record whatever's currently happening on your screen or the portion of your screen that you've selected while it's in recording mode. So for instance, if I want to show my students how to, say, make a graph on Excel or use some software that's on my computer, I can actually record myself doing that, and it'll just record whatever's currently on my screen. Alternatively, if I already have, say, a PowerPoint presentation made for a topic, I might want to record over that PowerPoint or Google Slides presentation or Smart Notebook file or whatever you might already use for lecture in class. In this video, I'm going to show you how to record over a PowerPoint presentation since that's what I usually do, but those skills will be transferable to any other format. When you open a new Camtasia file, your screen will look like this. The first thing you want to do is go to the File menu and save your new project. This way, should your computer freeze or something while you're working, you won't have lost everything. It's a good idea to make sure you save periodically as you work as well. It's also a good idea to save to an external hard drive since these files can be quite large. Once I've saved my project, now I'm going to get ready to record. To do so, I'm going to click on the film strip in the upper right-hand corner and click Start Recording. Now you'll see this box appear. I've selected full screen because I want to broadcast my entire screen, although I can choose to select just a region if I prefer. Currently, I have the camera set to off. We know this because it's not green and it says camera off. I can turn the camera on if I want my face to actually appear in the video. I choose not to put my face in the video just to maximize screen space, but that's a matter of personal preference. Then you want to make sure that Camtasia is recognizing the built-in microphone in your computer if that's the microphone you're using. You'll see that as I'm talking, white lines are appearing. That shows that it is indeed recognizing my microphone and the microphone's working. Once all this is set, I'm going to click Record, and I'll get a 3-second countdown to get set up. Don't worry if you go over those 3 seconds. It's easy enough to edit out anything you don't want when you're done recording. Here you'll see that I've just taken a regular PowerPoint and put it into presentation mode. From here I can use the arrow keys to go through my presentation as I normally would. This would work the same in something like Google Sheets or a Smart Notebook file. You'll also notice that it's convenient to use my cursor to highlight things that I want to draw the student's attention to. So often as I'm speaking, I'll just use the cursor. This is actually much easier than putting in animations when you're done recording. As I'm recording, it's very common that I make mistakes. I tend to just keep going and maybe repeat what I've just said and then edit out anything I don't want at the end. I find that easier. Alternatively, you can always pause your recording by again going to the film strip and hitting pause. Or you can start over. You'll see the start over option here. That will erase everything you've done and start fresh, whereas resume will just pick up where you left off. When I'm done recording, I'm going to go back to the film strip and select Stop Recording. You'll see now that your Camtasia window will pop back up and your film strip will turn from red to clear, indicating that you're no longer actively recording. You'll see that the media I just recorded appears here. Likewise, it will also appear in the bottom of your screen. Now I'm going to show you some very basic editing techniques. You'll see that I've switched to a different file that has more sources of media in it, just so I can show you a couple of different things. Whichever source of media you want to be working with, you want to drag it from this menu here down to the bottom here. I've actually already done that, and then it'll appear here. The first thing I usually do is take a listen to the audio and see if it sounds good. If not, I can go to Audio Effects. The things I use often are things like raising or lowering the volume. I often find I need to raise the volume, so I click on Raise Volume, drag it down here until it all turns yellow, and release, and that will raise the volume of my recording. Likewise, I can lower the volume by doing the same thing. If you're bothered by the noise in the background as you're recording or the clicking sounds you make as you're typing or clicking on things, You can use noise reduction or clicking reduction to reduce those sounds as well. Now that I've got my audio set, I'm going to show you some basic editing functions. You'll notice that I've turned the audio all the way down on my clip just so that the volume of me talking on that video doesn't interfere with me talking on this video. When you're ready to edit, you can play through what you have. The space bar acts as the play and pause button. Likewise, you can use the play or pause button here. So I'm going to hit the space bar and it'll start to actually play my video. If at any point I decide I want to edit something out, I can hit the space bar to pause it. I want to put this wherever I want to start my edit, so at the beginning of whatever I want to cut out. From there, I want to go to the Edit menu and select Split Selection at Playhead. Alternatively, I can hit Clover T if I'm using a Mac to do this. Let's say I want to edit from here to here in this video. Likewise, again, Edit, Split Selection at Playhead, or Clover T. And now I want to get rid of this section. Again, I go to Edit, and I'm going to select Ripple Delete. This will cause that section to delete and the two ends on either side to join each other, as you see here. Just selecting Delete will erase that portion but leave a gap where it once was. It's also possible to use Clover Delete here for the same function. I actually find that easier. Let's say you want to add an annotation to your video, such as maybe circling a graph, or adding an arrow, or even adding some text that pops up. In order to do that, you want to go to the Annotations menu on the side here, and this will appear. Let's start with circling something. So these are all our available circles and drawings. These are meant to look like you're actually drawing on the screen. So imagine I want to circle this graph here. I'm going to drag this over, position it where I want to position it, size it accordingly, and now once it's set in place, I need to determine when I want it to start and when I want it to end. The beginning of this blue box here represents the beginning of the drawing. So let's say I want it to start there and end here. You can test it out by then hitting your space bar, which will play it. You see the circle going around, and that looks good to me. If I want to make it longer, I simply drag this end over here, and again, the circle will now stay in place longer. Likewise, I can add an arrow by selecting an arrow over here. Again, drag it into the frame, put the point where you want it. You can control the length and the direction by clicking on this end. And again, the length of this blue box here will determine the duration that the arrow is on your screen. You can shorten it or lengthen it by dragging this. You can even move the whole thing if you've placed it in the wrong spot. The text can be handy as well if you want to draw students' attention to something that wasn't in your original PowerPoint. So here I can select the text, drag it in, type in whatever I want, and again, the length of the blue box will control the duration that it's on the screen. If at any point I want to change anything about my annotations, I can click this Properties button right here. This will give me this menu that will allow me to edit things like color and font. So obviously the white text is not working well against this white background, so I can change it to red. I can change my font here, all the typical things that you might do to a font. And again, I can move this around the screen as needed. That every time I add something, I get a new line here. So if you're worried about where everything else went, you just scroll down. Here's my audio down here. If at any point I want to add another clip that I've recorded, I go back to Media and select the other clip. Here, let's say I want to add it to the end, so I'm going to scroll to the end and simply drag that clip in, making sure that it butts up against the end of the previous one. That will be then a seamless transition. I can do this with all of the media clips that I have here. Although, as I mentioned, I tend to just keep recording and edit out things I don't want, rather than record a whole bunch of clips and piece them together. It's a matter of personal preference. When you're done and happy with your video, you want to, again, go to Save, although I recommend doing this repeatedly throughout your recording and editing process. And then you want to export your video. I prefer to export my video as an MP3, because that gives me some flexibility. I can then email that file to someone, or I can upload it to YouTube for people to access. To do that, I'm going to go to Share, and I'm going to select Export. You'll see that now the extension on the file has changed to an MP4 file from this original format, which only can be viewed in Camtasia. From there, I'll click Export, and it will begin exporting it to an MP4 saved on my computer wherever I've specified. This process takes a while, but you can do other things on your computer while it's exporting. That brings us to the end of this video. Let's review our goals. First, we learned how to use Camtasia to record all or part of your screen. Then we learned some basic editing functions in Camtasia, as well as some basic audio functions and some basic annotation functions. And finally, we looked at how to export your video as an MP4.